The Road to Nowhere, by E.J. Moore. The car sat in a quiet suburban driveway, its engine a low, throbbing pulse in the dead of night. Under a sky that held more secrets than stars, it vanished, stolen with a quiet ferocity. In the ensuing darkness, a man, meth burning in his veins, staggered toward the vehicle. His hands trembled uncontrollably, and his heart pounded like a desperate swarm of insects. Instinct drove him. He snatched at the door handle without a thought, his peripheral vision blind to the small child huddled in the back seat, until the door slid open. Not far behind, a father's determination broke through the night's lull. He saw the man yanking the door open, saw him climbing in, and launched himself towards the car. Through a grimy window, his calloused hand clutched the thief's shirt as he surged forward, his bare knuckles striking with ruthless precision against the intruder's face in a frantic bid to save his child. Then the sound of a shot shattered the tense air. The father's body jerked violently backward, and for an instant time froze on a spray of blood as his final guttural gasp faded into silence. The car thief's head snapped around, eyes widening in disbelief. About 15 feet away, bathed in the harsh glare of a streetlight, a man held a revolver with cold authority and asked, "Was he trying to rob you?" Without answering, the thief threw the car into gear and slammed on the accelerator, a mixture of panic and grim satisfaction propelling him away from the chaos. In the rear-view mirror, the flashing red and blue of approaching sirens receded, swallowed by the dark ribbon of a winding desert highway. A fleeting smirk played on his lips before a sudden, horrifying realization clawed its way back. "The kid," he gasped. His pulse raced as the stark reality crashed over him. His hands, slick with sweat, trembled on the wheel as he stole a glance at the back seat. There, the child, eyes wide with quiet terror, sat perfectly still, as if locked in a moment that would never break. Fear now mutated and fused with a desperate need for control. With his mind racing, he fumbled through the car for anything to regain some sense of power or direction. As he drove, his shaky hand reached over to the glove box. He popped it open and rummaged through the clutter inside. Napkins, old receipts, a small flashlight, until his fingers closed around cold metal. A pistol. It must have been the father's. Tucked away for protection, maybe never even used. But now it sat heavy in his palm, like some sick offering from fate. "What the fuck am I gonna do?" the thief whispered to himself. "They're gonna blame me for that man's death, and the kid's seen my face." After driving for miles as the darkness swallowed the desert road, he pulled over, knowing what he must do for the sake of his own freedom. Fearing that the boy might look back at him, he lifted the pistol from his lap with deliberate slowness. The dull steel gleamed under the faint glow of the desert night as he brought it closer, as if to convince himself of the finality of his actions. With a sickening calm, he turned to the boy. "Look out there," he said in a voice that betrayed no emotion, gesturing toward the seemingly endless horizon. "They say there's a magic mountain out there. It glows at night for the pure of heart. Look, do you see it? Look." The child's face, streaked with tears, remained a portrait of silent terror as he turned towards the back passenger window. The boy whimpered, barely audible, "I can't see it." His words were raw and filled with a trembling fear that made the man's stomach churn. Unable to face the raw, accusing eyes of the child, the man lifted the pistol and, with a single moment of cruelty, pulled the trigger. Bang! The sound echoed, a final punctuation. The child's body slumped over in the back seat, silent. Heart pounding, the man leapt from the car and rushed to the passenger side. His hands shook uncontrollably as he dragged the child's small, inert form onto the cold, dark desert floor. Staring down, he met the unblinking gaze of the boy. eyes wide, glassy, and silently accusing. In that moment, memories of previous narrow escapes, minor arrests, and whispered regrets flooded back. "It is what it is, kid. I refuse to go back." With a sharp exhale, he turned away from the horrified stare and climbed back into the car. As he sped off, a relentless guilt gnawed at him, though the barren desert offered no comfort, only the oppressive weight of an endless, unchanging void. The miles ticked by, and with every added rotation of the odometer, frustration and despair grew. The unbroken stretch of barren land mocked him, unmoved by his crimes. By 9 p.m. the next day, the car sputtered to a halt, the gas tank empty. In the desolate strip of nothingness, with no human or even the slightest sound of civilization, he resolved that it was safe to sleep, to ponder his next desperate move in the silence of the desert night. That night, sleep didn't come gently. It dragged him under like a riptide. He was back in the car, but the engine screamed instead of purred, red warning lights flashing across the dashboard like sirens of the damned. The rear-view mirror was cracked, blood smeared across it in a child's frantic handprint. He turned and the boy was there, only not sitting but standing on the back seat, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes bleeding black tar that poured down his cheeks like melting wax. The windows disappeared. The desert outside surged inward, filling the car with sand that crawled like insects, whispering voices in a language he didn't understand. The steering wheel melted in his hands, slick and pulsing like flesh. He tried to scream, but his mouth filled with thick, hot air. It smelled like rust, like death. Suddenly, he was outside the car, buried up to his neck in the desert, the boy standing over him, blank-eyed and still. A second later, the boy opened his mouth and let out a soundless shriek, impossibly wide, as his jaw dislocated and stretched, and kept stretching until it split in half like rotten fruit. He awoke with a scream lodged in his chest, heart on the verge of a panic explosion. The clock on the dash read 3:24. That's when he saw it. In the distance, out the very window he made the boy look out, he saw the silhouette of a mountain looming against the black sky. At first he hadn't noticed it in his frantic escape, but now it towered like a dark sentinel over the desolation. But that wasn't. No. His mind reeled as he tried to reconcile its sudden appearance. It was as if the landscape itself had betrayed him, shifting to present an omen he could neither deny nor escape. With no other path, he set off toward this inexplicable mountain, each step forward weighted by the burning desert air and the relentless throb of his racing heart. Night fell again, and in the darkness he collapsed in exhaustion, only to be jerked awake by grotesque visions, the haunting eyes of the murdered child, forever accusing. The mountain, distant at first, inched closer with every agonizing hour until by midday he reached its base. The stone was black, not dark, not shadowed, but black, as if it drank the light around it in silence. Jagged ridges carved into the surface curled inward like gaping wounds, casting warped shadows that leaned toward the screaming sun. Gasping for breath, his feet sore and raw from the unyielding desert, he pressed on into a cavern at the mountain's foot. Drawn by an unnatural magnetic force he could neither comprehend nor resist. Inside, the cave walls were alive with ancient inscriptions, alien in design, crawling across the stone as if imbued with a living memory. Figures twisted into archaic, unknown, but familiar shapes, depicting beings not of this world, and vast, forgotten cities that would hiss secrets of places beyond comprehension. He followed the labyrinthine tunnel, his hand trailing along the cool, etched stone, every symbol seeming to vibrate with an urgency he couldn't ignore. At the very end of the tunnel, his gaze fell upon a sight that defied rational thought, the boy. Or rather, what had once been the boy. The child's form twisted grotesquely, shoulders bending unnaturally as his body contorted, until the man no longer saw the innocent victim he had murdered, but something far darker, a being that defied description. In a heartbeat, the creature lunged, its form dissolving into a seething mass that coalesced and fused with the man's flesh. In that terrifying, impossible moment, his skin melted like wet foil, and his mind was thrust into a maelstrom of excruciating, fragmented agony. "I'm sorry," he begged, his voice cracking under the weight of absolute despair, but the void offered no forgiveness. Instead, the world continued to fracture around him. His mind was torn asunder, dragged into a vortex of ever-shifting geometries and impossible shapes. Each moment was a cacophony of eternal torment, a symphony of suffering that echoed endlessly within him. In the abyss of indescribable pain, he finally understood that his fate was sealed by his own hand. His reckless crime had shattered the barrier between his world and something far older, far crueler. There was no redemption. Trapped in that relentless cosmic punishment, he realized with bitter clarity, if only he had been caught, if only he had faced the consequences, perhaps his life might have held a sliver of mercy. But now there was no escape, only a road that led to nowhere, and the punishment at the end.